One of the things that amazes me in life, so many people are literally one nugget of truth away, one nugget of wisdom away from succeeding in another area of their life. And they can't see it. It's as if life comes with illusions. The closer you look at something, the less you actually see. It's mind-boggling if you examine it. I like to tell people, the less you know, the more you think you know. The more you know, the less you think you know. If you're in your 20s, almost in your 30s, or even if you're in your teens, in these stages of our youth, we tend to think that we have life figured out. We tend to think that we already know what to do. And to get advice from somebody who's older than us, it's dreadful. A lesson that I learned in my youth. But before I get to that lesson, I got to tell you this story about a friend of mine that, for the sake of the internet, I will conceal their name and I'll call this person James. It's a close friend of mine that passed away somewhere in my mid-20s. James, I met him when I was a teenager from another one of my friends who I met at a church and we started attending a Bible study. Anyways, long story short, I ended up going to this guy James' house. And these were in my days, in my Bible thumper days. And if you don't know what a Bible thumper is, it's a person who is extremely judgmental and they bash you in the head with the Bible, basically, metaphorically speaking. But so that's how I was. You know, I was going to church. I had a zeal for the things of God. And I still have a zeal for God, but a little bit wiser now. But in those youthful stages of my life and having zeal and energy and always wanting to correct people. Now, I didn't bash atheists in the head with the Bible or agnostic, people who didn't believe in God. I was always bashing other Christians on the head with the Bible because I always came across different fallacies in the Bible that people believed in. And then I was like, the Bible says this, but you guys are preaching this. So I just want to clarify that. But James, I remember going to this man's house and meeting him for the first time. And he would ask me about my life. You know, I told him how I grew up in my grandfather's home. You know, my parents, you know, they gave me up for adoption when I was a child. Now, James, very patient man with me specifically, but he was always very stern and willing to correct me. And at this point in my life, I never had someone correct me. I don't know if I've ever, besides my grandfather, I don't think I've ever had another man correct me as much as this man did. Someone who was completely unrelated to me. Now, one of the first lessons, this isn't the main lesson that I want to get to, but I have to make this clear. One of the first lessons that he taught me was to keep your word. In just very little things. You know, I would show up to his house late. You say, you're supposed to keep your word. You said you're going to show up at this time. We all agreed to this time. You show up late. It's always better to show up early. You know, I don't remember if he said show up early. I don't remember if he said that, but that's kind of the idea that I got. I need to be early at places. And I accepted this lesson, but I was very prideful because I knew it to be true, so I accepted this. But other lessons, I was very stiff-necked and hard-headed to accept. But this life lesson affected me in so many different areas of life, of being early. And it's helped me in my jobs that I've had. Every time I've had a job and I show up on time, show up early, don't call off, little things where I dropped out of college, but I've worked jobs where they've offered me to work in management positions, which one time I accepted a management position, but then I later was like, you know, I don't want to be a manager. I want to continue just being a regular employee because, you know, I'm trying to do some entrepreneurial type things and I know I'm going to have more responsibility to focus on that. I had a huge ego. I was a very prideful individual. I did not like to be the one who needed to be taught. Because one of the things that he taught me was to become teachable. He would call me names like, he would say, "You're a loose cannon." And I'm like, "What do you mean I'm a loose cannon?" He'd call me a loose cannon because I was always willing to voice my thoughts and opinions to everyone. And I was not willing to learn from anyone. This person may know more than me, but I always felt like I had to be the smartest person in the room. Because my ego, I wanted people to look at me like I was smart. And so one of the lessons he taught me was to become teachable, willing to listen, to receive information and process it. And if you're young, you tend not to do these things. You don't start doing these things usually until you've had to learn the hard way. And even if you still don't even learn the hard way, becoming a teachable individual, to me, it just felt like you're being weak. I always wanted to be perceived as the smartest man in the room. But this was a lesson that he taught me, that I don't have to be the smartest person in the room. Be willing to learn. And now this has affected me in so many areas of my life. And I believe that it is vital in all areas of life, whether it's in relationships, dating, psychology, business management. Being teachable is a skill. But people don't believe being teachable as a skill. They see being taught something, you could be taught a skill, but you don't get taught how to be taught. That's a skill. Now, I make this clear because so many people, they just want to get to the point in their life. They just want to get the result of something. They don't want to go through the process of what it is to get there, of what it takes to get there. But being teachable is the way to succeed in all areas of life. But I didn't realize that until I became a teachable person. Now, let me make something clear. My friend James passed away. That day was kind of a sad day for me. But I took some life lessons from him. As a teenager, I grew up, and most of my friends were grown adults. I learned a lot from adults. And now his passing left me in a state of realization where you can learn so much from other people that you think don't know anything. Now, at that time, all I was caught up on was just reading the Bible. I knew the Bible in and out. I could quote it all day. But I didn't know anything about psychology and relationships and all these other areas, business and money, how to navigate in the world. All I knew was how to read the Bible and quote it. And so I might not be the fastest person in the world. I might not be the most knowledgeable. I might not be the wisest man in the room. I might not be the strongest. But one thing I do know that I can do better than most people is I can adapt. And I am teachable. And I'm willing to learn and submit myself to gaining wisdom. Now, it's similar to something that I remember Dr. Miles Monroe would say, another one of my mentors. He would say that when you go to a doctor, you submit to them. See, it's a person that you have no clue, you don't know their life, you don't know their background. They might be, you're over here, you're a Christian, and maybe you don't like Muslims. But if your doctor was a Muslim, and this was the only person that could save your life, you would just do whatever they tell you to do. Or you go to the dentist, and they're going to clean your teeth. You have no clue who this person is, but you open your mouth and you let them start digging in your mouth. You submit to them in that moment. You pay them money so that they can solve your problem. And that is what life is like, a full circle. Is that when you need something, you do submit. And so I've realized, okay, I need to submit to gaining wisdom. It doesn't necessarily mean, it's not submit like, oh, I bow down to a person. They are my teacher. No, it's not that. It's the willingness to learn. And it's so mind-boggling to me that this is one of the most difficult things for people to do. Because in today's day and age, many people are completely saturnine, grumpy, angry people, full of pride and ego. They can't learn anything. Because working in the security industry and working as a security guard, I've learned a lot about psychology. And a lot of security guards, they have this puffed up chest where they feel like they need to show how masculine they are. I got a badge on, can't learn anything. They have to show everybody that they got a badge, or they got to show everybody that they have a gun. And so in these little moments, they think that they're somebody when they're really like nobody. If I had to compete with somebody on being who's the most teachable, I'd always win. And I say that sarcastically. It is important to become a student, and not just when reading the Bible or whatever it is that you like to learn about. There are things that you're interested in that you'll probably like to learn about or read about or watch documentaries or movies or whatever. There are things that you feel like, I'm only interested in learning this. I don't want to learn that, this, that, and the other. And what I'm saying is, it's important to become a well-rounded individual, because if you want to have kids one day, there's also areas in raising children that you have to learn things. And you don't have to learn the hard way. A lot of people think that they have to have rebellious kids, or they have to have a marriage that it's tough in the beginning. A marriage is always going to be tough. And it doesn't have to be tough if you're a knowledgeable person. And if both people are knowledgeable, you can't fail. Knowledgeable before entering into the relationship, or before you start your business, gain some information, gain some wisdom, nuggets of truth before starting your business. Don't just have an idea and try to execute on it. Try to see if people are actually interested in it. Idea first. And so gaining knowledge is not just academics and going to school and learning mathematics and science. One of my friends always asks me, what do I think is important to learn? And I really, truly, truly believe, probably besides God, the most important thing to learn in life is human psychology. Because human psychology, I like something that Grant Cardone always says, is he always says that people have everything that you want. Everyone else has everything that you want. All you got to do is be able to get it. And he says that he teaches his daughters to not be afraid of strangers, because people have everything that you want. If you want to buy a house, a person has that house. If you want money, someone has that money. If you want to buy a car, someone has that car. Shoes, your clothes, all the basic necessities of life, someone else has. And the food on your table, you had to get that from someone else unless you hunted it on your own. And so human beings have everything that you want. If you want to be in a relationship, you got to deal with another person. And it's important to understand the psychology of the opposite sex before you get in marriage. Because a man will get into a relationship thinking that a woman thinks like a man, or a woman gets into a relationship wanting her man to think like a woman. And so now there's conflict in the relationship because neither of the person's needs are being met. So now there's conflict and tension because they do not understand the psychology of the opposite sex. And this is something that I had to learn the hard way. But now that I've been gaining wisdom and knowledge, now when I deal with the opposite sex, I'm like, oh, I understand how they think now. They're not difficult people. It's just how God created them. And it's beautiful. I don't have to talk to somebody, a female, who's just like another dude. I know there's beauty in our differences. And I see that and I recognize it. But before, I used to despise it. I'd be like, women are just difficult. They're emotional. Now I realize, oh, they're different. They're not the same. So I just needed to get a little bit of wisdom and knowledge. Same, vice versa, women towards men. I know a girl who she's learned a lot about men. And she understands the way they think just a little bit more than most women. And so in her mind, she's like, oh, I understand men now. Men are not misogynists and all these other things. Okay, maybe there's guys out there who hate women, whatever. I'm not talking about that. I'm not here to talk about politics. So I say these things to encourage you to get wisdom. Literally, life is full of illusions. And people are literally one nugget of truth away, one nugget of wisdom away from succeeding in another area of life. And truth will expose the illusions. Just like a magician doing a trick. The closer you look at the trick, the less you actually see. The closer you look, the less you actually see. Life is full of illusions. The more truth that you gain, the less illusions there are. Because truth gives you clarity. Truth will allow you to have vision so you can see where you're going. It is a lamp unto your feet. You can walk in the light. And now I sound like I'm preaching, but I say this respectfully. Gain wisdom, gain truth, and be teachable, willing to learn. Get mentors. Don't just go off of your own head knowledge. Get wisdom from people and ask them, hey, what do you think that I should learn? If you feel like this person is not knowledgeable enough, you can get a little bit of wisdom from them, but then ask them, where did you learn this? So that you can go straight to the source of whatever they learned. If you're failing in your marriage, get wisdom in your marriage. And don't just only go get marriage counseling, but read a book on marriage. Read multiple books on marriage. Read opposing views, whether it's in politics. Don't just be a Republican or a Democrat. Learn both sides. And then you might realize, like me, oh, I'm neither one. I don't want to be a Republican or a Democrat. I don't want to identify with any. Again, I don't want to get into politics right now. But wisdom will help you have clarity. I say this so that you'll be encouraged to get wisdom in your life so that you can succeed. You're literally one nugget away from succeeding in another area of life. Success is not always black and white. Success can come in increments. Get another increment, another nugget. Build the wall one brick at a time, and you will always win. And I like to say that to people. Not quitting is also a skill. Don't stop in getting wisdom. When you get wisdom, get another piece of wisdom. Don't stop. Think, oh, I got it all figured out now. Like I said, the more you think you know, the less you actually know. So, anyways, God bless. Hit the like button, subscribe. If you like this video, hit the like. If you dislike, comment, tell me your thoughts. Share some wisdom tips if you want. Tell me what you learned in this video. Subscribe. Make sure to subscribe. Support a brother. Almost at 1,000 subscribers. I'm at 600 and what is it? Am I at 689 in this video right now? Probably. So, God bless. Subscribe to the Creedpodcast and follow me on all my other social media. Thank you.